Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear Sai brothers and sisters across the world, loving Sai Rams to one and all of you. And today we have yet another episode, and this episode is from Ooty. So I've come all the way from Tamil Nadu to Ooty, and thanks to Swami's grace, today we're having this interview at a samiti in Ooty. So here we have a Sai brother here who's invited me, and through him I've come to know yet another person, and today I am asking my dear friend Sai brother Rauji to introduce himself and also speak a few words about Swami and his experiences in the Sai fold. Sai Ram.
Sai. Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering my humble pronouns at the lotus feet of the beloved Bhagwan. I feel very happy today to be in the midst of my Sai brothers and sisters from Chennai who are here to ask me a few questions about our experiences with our Bhagwan. I'd like to introduce myself as Bali Rao. I was born and bred in Ooty, and luckily, or whatever to say, I've been chosen to be in the Sai fold at a rather tender age of 7. So I'm glad to be here in this interview, and you're free to ask me any questions.
Sure. It's lovely to hear that you've been in the Sai fold right from when you were 7 years old. I'm really jealous of that, in fact, if I may say so, because I came to know about Swami much later. Okay, so now coming to your experience with Swami, has your parents also been into the Sai fold, or how did you enter Swami's fold?
Well, to tell you, answer this question in a very short way, it's a difficult thing because I have to unfold a long story. So nothing happens overnight, you know. So it so happened that my father was back from Bombay after a business visit way back in 1959. And I was only 2 years then. So on the train he met with a Tamil-speaking co-passenger, who he befriended because they had a common language to communicate in. And it so happened to be that this gentleman was returning from Shirdi. And to make things better for him, he also said that I belong to Ooty. So there were these two people on the face to face with each other on the train with a lot of time, and while in conversation he got to know about Shirdi Sai, and he had 2 photographs with him of Shirdi Sai Baba, one very much like that, and which he said you should keep in your prayer altar and pray, and all good things will happen. You will be able to get the grace of Baba by worshipping him. Now this was in 1959, and this is only a hearsay story that I got from my elders in the family. So way back, they came back to Ooty, and my father very seriously made a frame of it and put it in the prayer altar, which was a big altar actually in the home in those days. We had big photographs. In fact, this one was there then. Anyway, this photo was also there, and Thursday was said to be a special day for Shirdi Sai, and so this pujas kept going on for some time. Now I'd like to roll this story to a few years forward to the year 1964. So as I grew up, I was born in a family of 10 children, and the last one, and I was born sick in the sense, like at the age of 3 I contacted what is called infantile eczema, basically, you know. There was like bubbles all over my body that were emitting pus, and so I had to be like wrapped up in cotton wool all the time, despite it being a very cold place, and it used to rain a lot those days. So I was exposed to the cold over time, and this eczema left me when I was about 3 years old. So approximately 2.5 or a little more than that, I was exposed to this cold, and that gave way to an airway problem. I became an asthmatic, and although the eczema disappeared slowly after that, the scars were there on my body, but that didn't trouble me anymore. But I was I developed this new problem. So when it was the year 1964 when I had an uncle living in our neighborhood in the adjacent place, and he and my auntie was one who had some experience with Sai. At least she hailed from a family where there was some connection with Swami. So I was diagnosed in the year 1963 with a disease called TB. TB, which was considered an incurable disease at that point of time, and it took my family by shock. My parents were in a state of shock, and my father obviously went left, right, and center to get advice somewhere because. And anyway, my uncle was there to say that, no, you see, you may have to take this trip to Puttaparthi, where they say there is a Baba, a reincarnation of Shirdi Sai. So, although it was a big adventure in those years, it's 1964 I'm talking about. So I was.
Parthi would have been very primitive then, not like how advanced.
Yes, it was
it
just
is.
a little hamlet and
Right.
very, very primitive, and with. Our trip from Ooty itself was a memorable one. We got out of via Bangalore, and then we got off a train in the middle of the night in a place called Penuganta, and that Penuganta station was so wore a haunted look. There was just one bulb on that platform in the middle of the night, and the whole place was desolate. And there were hardly any passengers who got off the train at that point, that station. So we had the sleeping kit, and my mother was there, my dad was there, and we went to sleep, and it was very uncomfortable, the heat, mosquitoes and all of that. Anyway, we woke up to the noise of vendors early in the morning, by 4 o'clock, I don't know what time it was. Anyway, I was very uncomfortable, and after a lot of grumbling, they got me to actually get something to freshen up and to get something to eat on that platform. The restaurant was open shortly, and after that we took this bullock cart that took us on various, one bullock cart that put us in a place, from where there was a small bus that took us to a place called Bukkapatnam or something.
Yes.
And from there again there was this bullock cart, it went right across the Chitravati river, it got stuck there, and it was a very bumpy ride, adventurous ride and what everything. So there we were, and we were asked to go and relax in a place that was just a shed. That was the only accommodation available those days. It was not even fully covered. It was air conditioned, like you might say. A lot of air coming in, but it was hot air. And for a bed, we had the sand bed to sleep on, and it was. We went to sleep again. A lot of mosquitoes, and then we woke up in the morning, and we asked to go for this. Morning prayer and all that. So after having a bath in Chitravati and all of that, freshened up, and I went for darshan, the first darshan. So the first darshan that I saw Swami was a memorable one because although I was a little kid, Swami's appearance and I don't know, there was something very sweet about him. So the only thing that I could get myself to do was to go and fall flat at his feet. So followed by my father and mother, they did that. So after that we went and we asked to sit down, ladies. So my mother went and sat with the ladies. There was just a bunch of ladies, 20 ladies max, and maybe some 30 men folk. So I was asked to sit along with that. And so the darshan thing came, and it became a daily thing, and Swami would pick up people for interview and so on. And bhajans would go on. All of that happened, and then I wasn't very happy there actually because of the heat, and I was not well. So day 2, day 3, I got a little impatient. I said, Swami doesn't seem to be calling us for an interview. He's calling everybody else. So I did see with my own eyes a girl about 12 years, 13 years old maybe, who was, those days there were no wheelchairs. She was taken into the interview room on a cane chair, and she came out walking. I was tiny, I was only some 6, 7 years old then, so I don't really, but I thought it was extraordinary, how could that happen? So all the same, I was very upset because Swami was not picking on us. So I got impatient there, day 3, and then day 4 I began to nag my father. I said, no, I think we've had enough, but we should be getting back home. So then at that point of time, my father said, see, we'll give it one more day's time. Whether he calls us for interview or does not call us for an interview, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we are leaving town. So I said, okay, it's a deal. So the first few days I did enjoy myself very much, in the sense like Sai Gita was a little calf, about that high. And she was very sweet, and she would be the first one to trumpet and call Swami for darshan, first one to garland Swami, things like that. And in the afternoon, the Veda Pathshala boys would be there at Chitravati with Sai Gita. And I loved watching Sai Gita playing with these boys in Chitravati in the midday heat. And that's the only place that I felt comfortable, because I put my feet in the water and it's like a little cool out there, you know. There's a lot of clean water in Chitravati, there's a lot of plenty of water, so I would enjoy myself with the fish, you know, nibbling at my feet and all that. So those were nice little experiences at that age. So then came the day when I thought was the D-Day, and so then Swami did come for this darshan at that morning. And he called on my mother, beckoned to my mother, who was seated in the midst of some ladies. And she said to get up, as he usually does in his style. So my mother was not too sure. She's very apprehensive. She said, no, can't be me. It must be this lady or that lady, not can't be me. That kind of thing. So she kept turning around. She said, no, you have to get up. So she is very pious. My mother was a very pious and very introverted lady, you know. So for everything, my dad had to be there and that sort of a thing. He comes from an orthodox family, basically. And so when Swami was called, she was in a little bit of shock. So then very immediately he turned around to where my father was sitting. He was in the midst somewhere else along with the gents. He asked my father to get up. Now father was a little more bold, so he got up. And then he pointed out to me, I was not sitting next to my father, I was a little far off, seated in a different place, because I had to get a vantage point, you know, having a ready guy sitting in front of me. He's a big guy, and turning around back, and I have to crank my neck to get a glimpse of Swami. Not a big crowd, but still. So I thought I should sit in a place. I was seated a little far off, but then Swami beckoned to me and asked me to get up.
But weren't you intrigued, saying, how is it that Swami was calling your father and your mother, and then you,
that did strike me, because but that was an afterthought.
Okay.
You see, when you meet Swami, one thing is the mind goes blank. So, there's no question of asking questions there. You might have planned. It's always happened with me. Even when I did plan to ask something specific, but when Swami is actually in a close range with you, you go blank. You're just enjoying, you're blissed out, and you're in his bliss, and so maybe I was too young to think of all that. So I did not think about all that. Anyway, we were there in this interview room. It was a tiny little room, and I was 8 by 8, a small room. And that is what was the famous interview room, which it was until very many years later. So in that room there were 3 of us, and then Swami did introduce himself by saying that it is because of your prayer to my previous form, from the time you got that photo in your altar, that you are privileged enough to be here in this midst today.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm trying to link that nothing happens, so just like that. So that is how the Shirdi Sai photo somehow brought us in the fold of Swami, and it was a family interview, just the 3 of us. It wasn't a group interview or anything, small crowd, and so my dad asked only, those days people would ask their family problems, questions that were agonizing them. So many issues that they had, stuff like that, and Swami kept answering all of it. And then actually the first question was about my health, because that is what took us to Puttaparthi. So he said, oh, they're saying it's TB. So the first thing Swami said, Yaar sunnanga. He spoke to my father in Tamil. Yaar sunnanga TB? No TB. The asthma. Seriya irva, kavala padade. So his words were, he diagnosed my illness in first shot. So, and as he said those sweet words, he stroked my back. I was a little kid, so he stroked my back, and I could feel all that, that congestion in my lungs. It was like actually, subsiding. It was just like, a gentle rub kind of. So After that, so many questions came, and then the interview did come to an end. I don't know what exactly my father discussed in detail because I was too tiny to understand all that. Anyway, he was there. I was wearing these half pants that were especially made for me because I was going to a hot place. So he stuffed the pockets of those shorts with vibhuti. He had a plastic bag full of vibhuti packets in it. You know, the plastic bags of those days. A bunch of it, put it in this pocket, bunch of it in that pocket. I gave a bunch of packets to my father and to my mother. And he said, "Romba sandosham, neenga naaliki irundhu nala naaliki ponga." That means he said, "You stay here tomorrow, enjoy yourself, and go day after tomorrow." And now the interview was over, and we came out, and I was back with my dad, worrying, saying, "Oh, now we've accomplished the mission." So we are leaving tomorrow. So he said, "No, see, those days there were not regular, not very many buses. There was only one bus leaving Prashanti Nilayam and coming to Prashanti Nilayam." So
and I guess there were no trains either, right?
Till Penugunda, not any further.
Not any further. Okay.
Penugunda, that is why we had to take this adventurous ride from Penugunda downwards. So the
and those, I recollect people telling me that those days there used to be those bullock carts which were like bumpy
rickety,
rides.
very rickety. Oh my God, that's the word. You'll be going in and you'll be like up in the air as it goes over a boulder. So rickety. So by the time you reach Prashanti Nilayam, you're in a state of, you're flustered, you know, you're shaken up.
I think people now, this current generation who are visiting Puttaparthi, will be amazed when they hear this kind of an interview because they would not have known that such things were how it was then. So, see the advancement which happens, and all this is thanks to Swami's grace because he, being an avatar, was able to accomplish all this during his lifetime and as a single man army. That's something really amazing, phenomenal. Yes.
Phenomenal. So that was it where my dad had to go and make some arrangements for his return. And it so happened that all the tickets on that bus, on that one bus was full for the following day. So the only option left open was what to do what Swami said. The day after tomorrow, Swami said, Nala Naliki. So tickets were available, and we did get back to Ooty after that historic visit. So after that, we got a small photo of Swami which he gave us on hand, and we framed it, and it was kept in our prayer altar, and my father used to offer praise to it every day. This bhajan culture started that time because my auntie was already in it, and I was taught to sing a few bhajans at that young age. And the following winter that came, I had to be moved to a place. My auntie then moved to Metropolitan, which is the base of the Nilgiris. So my auntie and uncle had a small living quarters there because they had a small farm out there, and they would go down there. So since they were going down, my father asked them if it's okay if I go with them so that I would be in the winter. Now our school winter holidays would last from November to January, end of January. So 2 months of holidays, and to be out of the Ooty cold for that time in the warm climate would help me. So that was the time when there used to be these bhajans in Metropole, in my auntie's house, and all the kids and all that neighborhood. They would be called and would be sitting down in my auntie's little prayer altar and singing bhajans in the evening. So at that point of time, my auntie was impressed the way I sang. Said, "Oh, you got such a nice voice," and stuff like that. So they even got me something that I could use as a ganjira. It was actually something that dancers would use. It was a tin thing that would have little jingles on it. So something that, but then I used it as a ganjira while bhajans were going on. That itself gave a lot of pep to the music. So bhajan,
you still play the ganjira?
No, not now. But the bhajan culture started then. So when I got back, I got to learn small bhajans here and there, and then Thursday became a daily. Daily we would have bhajans, and in the subsequent years that followed, Swami came here, and we saw him here. We had the fortune of having a number of interviews over here as well, family interviews, wherein when my eldest brother, who's not with us anymore, he was in a group of youngsters who used to serve as volunteers per se. There were no sevadals. So in a devotee's house, and
so Swami has visited this place
I'll tell
where
you,
we are seated right
yes,
now.
I'll tell you about that as
Okay,
well.
okay.
So it was way back in 67. Swami was with these in Ooty in another devotee's house, and my brother, who was a group of volunteers, out of the way he told us, Swami Vitukuvanga Swami. Now the thing that I want to emphasize and tell you is that when Swami came to Ooty in those years and then onwards, it is not the Swami that devotees subsequently saw and talked to. When you see Swami, Swami, that awe, that sense of fear and extreme respect and all that, that was completely lacking in Ooty. I mean, in the sense like when you talk to Swami, and Swami talked to us like that, one-to-one, like a human being. So it wasn't like, you're talking to a Purna Teja avatar. No, that was out of our mind. We didn't even know what it was. We only knew we had a loving Swami with us, okay, and we were talking to him. And he was interacting with us as a human being. So my brother asked him, Swami Vitukuvanga, just out of the blue. So he said, Varenda. And he kept quiet. And he was here for a few days. After that, 4-5 days passed by. After 4-5 days, again he had to remind Swami Vitukuvanga Sunni. So second time he was a little rough. He said, Varenda. He was a little rough. So with that it ended, and then we were here. It was a May afternoon. Was it an afternoon, evening? In 1967.
67 he visited this place.
1967. Out of the blue, see, Swami likes to take people by surprise. We never expected Swami. We have a Swami's a darshan as usual, and then we were in botanical gardens because in the middle of summer. We enjoying ourselves over there, whole families over there, and suddenly my father's coming, rushing into botanical garden saying, Swami is coming home, what are you people doing here? So we had to rush home in a hurry, in such a big hurry, clean up the place, the house was in a mess, whatever. And then there was this little room here, it wasn't the way it was 2 rooms actually, and that time only 1 room, and there was a bench on which Swami's photo would be kept. And beside it, not even a chair for Swami, just a few other deities' photos, and where we would offer flowers to Swami and do this Ashtotra Namavali, whatever, and do bhajans. So Swami came here saying a few words in Tamil. He said, Romba Sandosha, and he lit a lamp here in year 1967. Okay. Now, if I may say so, it's by his grace that lamp is still burning.
Excellent. It's so wonderful.
So it is. I'm only trying to say that it is his divine sankalpa, not my effort. People have come, people have gone in this samiti, office bearers, or devotees by the dozens. But then, it's his home and this lamp keeps burning. There may be 10 people in the samiti, there may be 20 people in the samiti. It's not a question of strength. Swami, the place where he has planted his foot on, it becomes eternally blessed.
Yes, very sacred.
Very sacred, absolutely. Yes. And we feel really grateful that Swami has blessed us with his presence over here. So that time, again, was an interview kind of thing, and he visited our house and talked to us, had coffee and whatever, and I went to my auntie's house, which was next door, talked to them in private, and apparently they were in some financial difficulty, they say, and I was given to believe, and I am not an eyewitness to it, but that he materialized the sum of money that amounted to exact amount of liabilities that my uncle had at that point of time, and sorted it out in one shot. So anyway, all these things happened, and it's been a nice long journey after that, and coming to present times, when we don't see in the physical form Swami, the way we saw him those days in close proximity, it did hit us like a thunderbolt when we knew that he had attained Mahasamadhi. But now going back and thinking about it, I'm reminded of what this is my resolve for the day, and this is what I tell people every day, that nothing that Swami has done is out of context, nothing is a coincidence. And to tell you in very simple terms, as we see in the back of a vehicle, I get to see some stickers sometimes, God has a plan and you are in it. You see, whenever I see it, I think, oh, Swami, how beautifully worded. So nothing is out of context, and nothing is a coincidence. So we are all in Swami's fold. We have to hold on to that very strong faith. And to tell you in again in simple terms, my Swami has been asked several times, what is your biggest miracle, Swami? No, not one person, but very many people have asked this question, and he's given very many varied answers to it. But the one answer that struck my mind was when he told a devotee, "You are my biggest miracle." He pointed to the devotee and said, "You are my biggest miracle." Now, coming from the mouth of the one who is, Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, that means Srishti, Sthiti, Samhar, everything, he controls it. Now, for him to say that you are my miracle is not an ordinary statement. That has stayed in my mind, and it still remains to be what is inspiring me or keeping me alive these days. So, he's always been there. While sitting on an elephant back along with this group of volunteers in the Mudumalai forest range in the yesteryears, Swami was actually, talking, and my brother tells me he was on the same elephant back. So he says, Swami used to eat betel leaf those days. So he had this silver box with him, and then he had this betel leaf, and he was like playing around with the betel leaf, and with this little scoop that you have to take chunam out of it. So with that he was like playing something and talking to these youngsters who were with him on the back of the elephant, and nobody ever realized what Swami was doing. Now after he's finished, he shows to everybody, see this, and what everybody get to see is a beautiful drawing of a peacock on a betel leaf.
Wow. Okay.
Which he drew not with a pen but with that little scoop. So Swami said, see, now all I have to do is to blow life into it, and there will be a peacock there, a real peacock. Now, see, I'm telling you this is because the profoundness of Swami's greatness, to say such a great statement in such simple terms, and very many times he has proved it. So, the concluding statement of all that I have told you now is that be fully convinced that Swami is eternally with us. He is watching us, and he is guiding us, and he is the guiding force of our life.
Definitely, I agree with you, Sai Brother Rauji, because as I look at it, what Swami gives us is his gift to us. What we make of our lives is our gift to him. So, needless to add that every one of us, since he holds us so dear to his heart, must live up to his expectations. In some way or the other, we must strive each day to be, as close to him as possible, such that he takes pride in saying, Appa, inge paru, ennodiya devotee, ivan da. அப்படின்னு அந்த பாசம் இருக்கு பாருங்க. That is what we should aim for அப்படிங்கறது நீங்க ரொம்ப நல்லா சொல்லியிருக்கீங்க. It's really wonderful having you today here with me. It's been such a wonderful journey of back early 50s, how it was. So it's like going back memory lane. And I'm thrilled to be here today because Swami has visited this place. And can you tell us something about this Samiti?
Well,
what's the name of this Samiti? Is there some name?
Sai Kripa is the name of this place, so everybody referred to it as Sai Kripa. The word Samiti came much later.
Okay.
So activities have been going on in a scale that Swami willed. We went to Prashanti Nilayam from time to time, for this Prashanti Seva and whatnot. We would be sitting down in those years for even a whole month put together. After those days there was no entertainment as such, distractions of the present day. So in the evening after we are done in this very same room, we would sit down and then make these vibhuti packets. Now we didn't have vibhuti packets. Vibhuti packets, my sisters and my father was also very good at likita japam. So there would always be piled up paper and which used to be filled up with vibhuti, and they would be put into tea chests, wooden boxes in which used to accommodate tea leaves those days. So they would, every time for festivals when it came, Puttaparthi, Mahashivaratri, or birthday function, there would be necessity for a lot of vibhuti that time. So these vibhuti packets, devotees would put in their cars and they would take it to Puttaparthi, and Swami would be thrilled to receive it. Because, there's so much of effort put into my, devotees.
So do you also have Balavikas classes being conducted here in...
Presently, if I were to say this pandemic has, disrupted the little activities that has been there. The Balavikas guru that we had is now, she's doing something, I think, online.
Okay.
She's way out there in
No,
US.
even in Chennai, where I'm coming from, we've got Balavikas classes in online of late, because the pandemic has hit people so badly that, I would say this itself is like a satsang. That is probably why Swami has made me to do this 52 weeks.
And talking about satsang, if I may interrupt and take 1 or 2 minutes of your time.
Sure.
You might, this room wasn't there. This mandir was not there at one point of time. And how it came about was because my brother, along with this group of friends in the good old days, they used to stand in front, below a street lamp.
Okay.
And chat in the evening hours. That was the only entertainment youngsters would have, teenagers of those days. So my father was walking back from the shop. He was running those days. He had a tailoring house, an old one. He was returning home and he found these youngsters, and my father was a disciplinarian. So he didn't like, these fellows hanging around there under a street lamp and chatting away and all that. So he came and he talked to my brother in very stern terms, and he said, "What are you people doing out there? It's not nice." Stuff like that. So my brother was bold enough to tell my father, we were talking about Swami.
Okay.
That is Satsang, the very word that you used.
Yes.
So that word got into my father's head, and he said, no, that's not the place to do satsang. You need a place to do satsang. So that's how a small room was constructed. This was only half the size then.
Okay.
So that room was actually constructed to put Swami's altar there, and to let these fellows sit down and chat indoors and not be on the street.
Beautiful beginnings, I would say, because these are all very crucial, for somebody's growth. The next generation, these are very precious little tidbits which make up the glorified picture. So I thank you once again. It's been such a wonderful pleasure listening to you. It's been like a story that you have narrated, and I thank Swami from the bottom of my heart for this. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for this beautiful episode that you've heard now. Stay tuned for more, and I'm sure you're going to get lots of people recounting their stories on Baba. Jai Sai Ram. Love you all.